passed and repassed several soldiers on guard, while on the threshold of the barrack appeared a few children, with their mothers of Ticuna blood, affording very poor specimens of the mixed race. In place of accepting the breakfast of the sergeant, Yaquita invited the commandant and his wife to come and have theirs on board the jangada. The commandant did not wait for a second invitation, and an appointment was made for 11 o'clock. In the meantime, Yaquita, her daughter, and the young mulatto, accompanied by Manuel, went for a walk in the neighborhood, leaving Benito to settle with the commandant about the tolls, he being chief of the custom house as well as of the military establishment. That done, Benito, as was his wont, strolled off with his gun into the adjoining woods. On this occasion Manuel had declined to accompany him. Fragoso had left the jangada, but instead of mounting to the fort, he had made for the village, crossing the ravine which led off from the right on the level of the bank. He reckoned more on the native custom of Tabatinga than on that of the garrison. Doubtless the soldiers' wives would not have wished better than to have been put under his hands, but the husbands scarcely cared to part with a few race for the sake of gratifying the whims of their coquettish partners. Among the natives it was quite the reverse. Husbands and wives, the jolly barber knew them well, and he knew they would give him a better reception. Behold then Fragoso on the road, coming up the shady lane, beneath the ficuses, and arriving in the central square of Tabatinga. As soon as he set foot in the place, the famous barber was signalled, recognized, surrounded. Fragoso had no big box, nor drum, nor cornet to attract the attention of his clients, not even a carriage of shining copper with resplendent lamps and ornamented glass panels, nor a huge parasol, nor anything whatever to impress the public, as they generally have at fairs. No, but Fragoso had his cup and ball, and how that cup and ball were manipulated between his fingers! With what address did he receive the turtle's head, which did for the ball, on the pointed end of the stick! With what grace did he make the ball describe some learned curve of which mathematicians have not yet calculated the value, even those who have determined the wondrous curve of the dog who follows his master? Every native was there, men, women, the old and the young, in their nearly primitive costume, looking on with all their eyes, listening with all their ears. The smiling entertainer, half in Portuguese, half in Ticunian, favoured them with his customary oration in a tone of the most rollicking good humour. What he said was what is said by all the charlatans who place their services at the public disposal, whether they be Spanish Figaros or French perruquiers. At the bottom, the same self-possession, the same knowledge of human weakness, the same description of threadbare witticisms, the same amusing dexterity, and, on the part of the natives, the same wide-mouthed astonishment, the same curiosity, the same credulity as the simple folk of the civilized world. It followed, then, that 10 minutes later the public were completely won, and crowded round Fragoso, who was installed in a loja of the place, a sort of serving bar to the inn. The loja belonged to a Brazilian, settled at Tabatinga. There, for a few vatems, which are the souls of the country, and worth about 20 reis, or half a dozen centimes each, the natives could get drinks of the crudest, and particularly assai, a liquor, half solid, half liquid, made of the fruit of the palm tree, and drunk from a cui, or half calabash, in general use in this district of the Amazon. And then men and women with equal eagerness took their places on the barber's stool. The scissors of Fragoso had little to do, for it was not a question of cutting these wealthy heads of hair, nearly all remarkable for their softness and their quality, but the use to which he could put his comb and the tongs, which were kept warming in the corner in a brazier. And then the encouragements of the artist of the crowd. Look here, said he. How will that do, my friends, if you don't sleep on the top of it? There you are, for a 12-month, and these the latest novelties from Belem and Rio de Janeiro. The Queen's maids of honour are not more cleverly decked out, and observe, I am not stingy with the pomade. No, he was not stingy with it. True, it was only a little grease, with which he had mixed some of the juices of a few flowers, but he plastered it on like cement. And as to the names of the capillary edifices, for the monuments reared by the hands of Fragoso were of every order of architecture, buckles, rings, clubs, tresses, crimpings, rolls, corkscrews, curls, everything found there a place, nothing false, no towers, no chignons, no shams. These heads were not enfeebled by cuttings, nor thinned by fallings off, but were forests in all their native virginity. Fragoso, however, was not above adding a few natural flowers, 2 or 3 long fish bones, and some fine bone or copper ornaments, which were brought him by the dandies of the district. Assuredly, the exquisites of the Directory would have envied the arrangement of these high-art coiffures, 3 and 4 stories high, and the great Leonard himself would have bowed before his transatlantic rival. And then the vatems, the handfuls of race, the only coins for which the natives of the Amazon exchanged their goods, which rained into the pocket of Fragoso, and which he collected with evident satisfaction. But assuredly night would come before he could satisfy the demands of the customers, who were so constantly renewed. It was not only the population of Tabatinga which crowded to the door of the loja. The news of the arrival of Fragoso was not slow to get abroad. Natives came to him from all sides. Ticunas from the left bank of the river, Mayarunas from the right bank, as well as all those who live on the Kajuru, and those who come from the villages of the Javare. A long array of anxious ones formed itself in the square. The happy ones coming from the hands of Fragoso went proudly from one house to another, showing themselves off without daring to shake themselves, like the big children that they were. It thus happened that when noon came the much-occupied barber had not had time to return on board, but had had to content himself with a little assai, some manioc flour, and turtle eggs, which he rapidly devoured between two applications of the curling tongs. But it was a great harvest for the innkeeper, as all the operations could not be conducted without a large absorption of liquors drawn from the cellars of the inn. In fact, it was an event for the town of Tabatinga, this visit of the celebrated Fragoso, barber in ordinary and extraordinary, to the tribes of the Upper Amazon. End of Chapter 12. Fragoso at Work. Recording by Luke Harrison. web.me.com/back in the USSR 6/.